everybody, this is Brad Miller, and I'm here with Steve and Christian. We're ready for a great show today.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. This is going to be a really special one for me personally, just because I get a chance to know a dear friend already, but a friend much better. His name is Jelani Memory. And thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know you had
Yeah.
a busy last month, but for those of you that don't know, Jelani founded Circle. This was a company that was acquired by Disney in 2017. Here's my favorite part of Jelani. He's a husband, father, entrepreneur, creative consultant, photographer, videographer. I mean, a gymnast, a soccer player? I mean, good Lord, can you leave some of the talent for the rest of us? Because that would be, that'd be helpful. But thanks for joining us. It's so good to connect again. And I would love to hear the story. Let's start with, you've obviously created several companies, but tell me about the inception of Circle. What was transpiring? What was that time of life all about?
Yeah, well, thank you for the very kind intro. You forgot that I'm fluent in Greek, biblical Greek, by the way. But anyways, no, not quite anymore. But Circle really came out of this desire to give our kids the best relationship possible with technology. When the iPod Touch and the iPhone and the iPad came on the scene, all of a sudden kids were carrying around these devices that were like little computers in their pockets. So we few dads banded together and founded a company, with no business founding a company together to try and give our kids a great relationship with the technology and the devices they had in their lives. And so that ended up being the product called Circle, that we launched in partnership with the Walt Disney Company. And it allowed parents to pause the internet, set time limits on YouTube, set a bedtime so their kids weren't online past 7 o'clock. It was an incredible journey, starting that business, growing it, and look, it was hard. We, ran into all sorts of snags along the way, but for me, I still take a lot of pride in the good we did in the world and helping families just manage their online content and time.
Wow. Yeah, Circle, it's interesting because when I see this technology, I think to myself, my kids are on their device all the time. Like we try
Yeah.
to take breaks and you got to just do something else. Like the other day, somebody was on, my kid was playing with the cars, the Hot Wheels. And I was like, I'm so happy to hear them play with real toys and not just be on the device. But I love the technology you've created. What inspires you to work on projects like that? Like, I guess just how, like, besides just wanting to help with the kids, but how did you maintain the excitement for what you were doing and where it was going?
Sure. That's a really easy one for me. I played sports my whole life. And when I got to college, I got a really bad injury and I stopped playing for the first time. And I realized I had this huge vacuum of time where I could chase things that I was interested in. And so, I think that's when I got bit by that entrepreneur bug to just start things from nothing. And I took in that experience I had from sports that was sort of this lack of fear of failure. In sports, you win games, you lose games, and that's okay. That's normal. It's expected, actually. And so I started things and I didn't worry about whether they would work or not. It was just, is this interesting to me? Am I good at this? And will this make a difference in other people's lives? And so my career after college was as a photographer and then a filmmaker. And when my friend said, hey, we should start this company that maybe will change a generation of how they connect online, I was like, sure, why not? I have no business doing that, but that sounds really worthwhile. And for 3 years, we slogged, tried to raise some money, couldn't do any partnerships, barely got past the prototype stage. And, for me, those are some of the funnest months and years because we were inventing something from nothing and it was so worthwhile. And I got to press all these really creative buttons inside of me and we got to solve new problems, sort of make something for parents that really would matter in their daily lives.
Yeah, that's
That just
good.
kept moving you forward. That's great.
Yeah.
So
I love
during
that.
your time at Circle, you had 80 plus employees working for you. Who did you model your leadership style after to maintain that many employees to create that incredible of a product?
Well, yeah, gosh, you're talking me up a little too much. So, I was a part of an executive team. My role was founder and chief product officer. And, in terms of who I modeled my leadership after, look, I feel like I've collected what I'll call a series of mentors and father figures throughout my entire life. And I needed it because I didn't have a dad growing up. And they've had a tremendous influence on me and how I am as a person, how I interact as a boss, how I lead people, and how I come alongside them. And I look to friends and mentors like my good friend Kevin Carroll and his unshakable enthusiasm and the sense that you could ask him to dive into any problem with you and he would somehow come out more happy on the other side of it instead of frustrated. And so I sort of took that on. This unshakable sort of drive and patience that I found in my friend and co-founder Lance Charlish. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. My good friend and mentor Gary Friesen and his ability to break things down into their component parts and try and find a solution for each one and still stay creative through that process. Each of those folks, they sort of end up being a part of my abilities, my drive as an entrepreneur and a leader, and that really stayed with me throughout my time at Circle and ultimately led to the next business that I started, a kids book about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's awesome. I mean, hearing the people that you get to work with and talk to, it's I'm sure you learned a lot of lessons throughout the years. And I'd like to know, like, what was your hardest lesson or struggle that you had to learn, and how did you overcome that struggle? And what were like some of the key takeaways from that?
Yeah, I think the hardest part of any job is always the people. And I say that because people change their minds. They have ideas of their own. They get frustrated. They get mad. You can think you're doing something good for them, and they think it's bad for them. And so that was always the most challenging part for me, and still is as an entrepreneur, and especially at Circle. And I'd say that one thing that I ran into eventually was realizing that sometimes being right isn't being right. And what I mean by that is sometimes you can be totally right about something, but go about it the totally wrong way in terms of building consensus and buy-in and belief. I was a young and hungry entrepreneur, and I just thought I was right about everything. And even if my idea was brilliant, just going, here's what we're doing was never going to be the way to lead people. And I kept running up against that brick wall a lot until I realized I need to get people embracing this idea as if it's their own and not tricking them into it by no means, but to get them to embrace it, to buy in, to think through some of the same things I did so that they go on that journey with me. And what I found when I did that is they would add new things to the idea that I never thought of. And I realized I'm doing myself a disservice and this idea a disservice when I don't invite them into the process of this idea creation. And so that for me, it was a huge learning that it really took me 7 years, a Circle to learn and to build. That now taking it into my new business makes it a lot more fun to generate new ideas.
Man, I love that. That is something I want to take away as a leader, is just saying, hey, when I invite others into my process, even though as a leader and as an entrepreneur, whatever you want to say, we think we've already war gamed it all in our head. This is
Yeah.
how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to build it. This is what it's going to look like. This is what's going to, and instead of just informing those around us,
Hmm.
inviting them into the process, man, that's really great. Thanks for that. So,
Yeah.
so you just mentioned you currently are working on a kids book about, and that's a project that seeks to educate kids on deep topics that are affecting their worldview. Well,
Yeah.
you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have 5 kids, correct?
6 kids.
6 kids. Oh my goodness. Well,
Wow.
so was raising them kind of the impetus to starting this company, or was it, what was kind of the inception of a kids book about?
It was all my kids, and to their credit, this company didn't start as a company. It started as one book that was just designed for my kids. So back in 2018, I wrote a kids book about racism for my own kids, and it was a way to leave behind an artifact, mostly for my at that time newly born son Solomon, to help make sense of his journey as an adult or even as a kid with his own skin color and the idea of injustice and racism. And also, race, culture, color, racism is an open conversation in my family. Having a white wife, 4 white kids, 2 brown kids, we talk about it a lot. And that little book, my kids loved it. My wife thought it was cool. But when I showed it to other parents, something really, you could just see their eyes light up, and there was this fear, but interest. And I would get
Mm.
told the same thing over and over again. Can I have this book to take home and read it to my kids? And I thought, really? You want to read my little book? Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that happened again and again and again. And they would always leave me with one encouragement after we'd finished talking. I should think about making more books on other hard to talk about topics. And that was just a seed that got planted that just would not go away as much as I tried. And so I'm at that time, I'm at Circle. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. I have the highest position I've ever had. We've just raised $20 million. And I'm ready to get rid of all of that to go chase a kids book company from scratch, having no background in writing or publishing, but realizing that these conversations, they have to be had between grown-ups and kids, because kids are ready. They need parents to step up and have these
Yeah.
conversations. And if we could make a set of books, it just helps start the conversation, not end it, but start it. We will have done a lot of good in the world. So that was really the genesis behind a kid's book about and how we got started.
Man, that is incredible. That is
Yeah.
incredible.
I love that. So hearing that you have 6 kids, you've, been an executive for a large company. Now you're starting another company, and I'm sure you have a lot of other things going on, like all of the things we mentioned, photography, videography. What are some productivity tricks or things or advice that you would have given yourself 5 years ago that
Ah,
you know
that's
now?
good. That's really good. I don't know if it'd be 5 years ago, maybe it'd be a little bit further back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you my whole bag of tricks, and they're really easy.
Yes. Got
Like,
it.
go to bed on time, like get some sleep. The idea of like not getting 8 hours of sleep is like, that's crazy to me. Like, I have to get 8 hours of sleep. I'm more creative, I'm more thoughtful, I'm more present, all things that you have to be as a leader and a person who makes things, right? So get sleep. The next one is find time to be bored. So that for me is like going
Mm.
on walks, having enough leisure time, having that sort of that time where you're just like, there's nothing planned, there's nothing scheduled, you're not trying to be productive. And what I get out of that is all of my best ideas, hands down. So best ideas, they happen on a plane, very bored on a plane. They happen in a shower, pretty bored in the shower. They happen on Sundays where it's like, what are we doing this afternoon? I don't know, just kind of doing stuff. And then it's like, just like a lightning bolt hits me. I'm like, oh my God, I just got the best idea I've ever had. But that comes from having the space for an idea to enter in, right? If you're so full, if you're productive all the time, those ideas, they can't creep in. And then the other bit, and this one, I've struggled for the last couple months because it's been so busy, but just schedule less meetings, which really fosters more of that free time, more of that board time for ideas. And I think ideas are so important. But I'm working at that one. I've been scheduling a lot of meetings lately, and I'm trying to schedule less of them to carve out more of that creative time. Those for me, right? Sleep, being bored, and scheduling less meetings are huge. And just being able to feel like you have your sanity to do the work that you need to do.
That's
And
like
that's
like
great.
just with design, like having white space, right? Like
Yeah.
things look better and feel better when you have that space. And I feel like that's what that is you're making space, you're making time so that your brain can think through and come up with new things. Because when you're always busy, your mind is on that one thing. That's just
Yeah.
like with me at work. Sometimes there's so much going on, I don't have time to think through. So that is huge. Like that is a really, really good
Yeah. And you enjoy it more. You enjoy it more like that. There have been moments where I realized I was having a moment that was maybe one of the most successful moments in my career. And I wasn't happy. I didn't enjoy it because I realized I didn't have the space to enjoy it. I
wow.
was too tired. I was too sort of run down. And so
Yeah,
I want to be able to enjoy the work that I'm doing, which means, again, yeah, making space for that.
it's great.
That is tough though. I mean, for some people, like it sounds like you and me both, like we just go, 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 and we don't
Sure.
celebrate our victories. We don't even have time. We don't take time to be like, can you believe what just happened? We're just kind of like, what's the next thing, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's incredible advice. So coming from a string of very successful startups, what is next for you after you take over the book industry? And are you hiring? Just one.
Oh, that's
Asking
great.
for a friend.
That's great. I was on another podcast and they referred to it as my publishing empire, which I've just taken on. Like, yeah, I own a publishing empire.
There you
You
go.
know, what's next for me is really simple. I'm a big believer that what you are going to do then is what you're doing now. That somehow we prepare for moments that are going to happen 10 years from now by doing those things today. And quite frankly, I think that's helping other entrepreneurs with their businesses. That's really interesting to me, and I should be charging like a bundle to consult and do a bunch of stuff, but I just enjoy it too much to help new green entrepreneurs think through an idea and try and find a way to execute it. So I think that's probably what's next afterwards. And then honestly, hopefully having enough time and free space to finally write my, sci-fi epic that I can't wait to get to, that I have zero time to do. But that would be my dream: help other entrepreneurs and finally write a book, a real book, I suppose.
So I love that because this actually is kind of my next question is sort of related to that. Understanding technology changes all the time. And so it seems like you're excited about new things. What is something that you're really excited about right now in the tech industry? What's got you like thinking, ooh, that's really cool. That's the next thing. What's got you
Yeah.
excited?
So I fundamentally believe that AR, augmented reality, is going to be such a big part of our lives in 10 to 20 to 25 years. I think that we will we will look back at those little rectangular glass squares that we had in our pockets and think that was so silly, just like we look back and look at the computers that they had taking up a whole room, like, gosh, can you believe it was like that? I think that living in a world where we have essentially a digital overlay will present all sorts of opportunities and a whole lot of problems. It'll present what's real and what's not real and being able to tell the difference. And I think, imagine a world where the very idea of seeing as believing is erased, right? And I think we're going to enter a technology age where that is not just true, it is so prevalent that we have to write new rules about how we decide what is true and what is real. And I think there might be a return to desiring the tactile and the real all the more, in that kind of future than there even is now. I think still we are attracted to screen time, and that it sort of presses all the right buttons and does all the endorphins. So I'm both excited about and terrified about it. I think every new technology presents these massive opportunities and also these incredibly difficult and intractable problems, but that's probably the one I'm most excited about.
Yeah, that's
Man,
great.
that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So when you sorry, let me go a little deeper in that.
Sure.
You say kind of an overlay. Are we talking about like the evolutionary step beyond the Google Glass or glasses? Are you talking like, or is that how you envision it? Like, what does that
Yeah.
look like? What does that world look like?
Yeah. I mean, imagine a world where you wear a pair of glasses or you have a pair of contacts, that can overlay anything. So if you
Mhm.
want, a lamp to be a different color, if you want an overlay for the road while you're driving, how fast are you going, what cars are coming up, when's your next turn? I mean, all of that stuff. Right now, we pull up a big glass screen in front of our
Right,
face. It's this
right,
big to see all
right.
those things. But imagine if those things were not just present in those things in your everyday life and you could fix them. I mean, the idea of having a big glass thing on the wall that you would watch a movie on will be ridiculous. We'll just put a TV out in space. It can be as big or small as we want it to be. We can all join into communal sort of watching of something in our backyard, right, with our earbuds. I mean, like, these sound really far-fetched, and yet they are so grounded
Yeah,
in what will be possible. And
Yeah.
again, I think this presents all sorts of interesting opportunities where we can get some of these devices out of our lives and
right.
be able to get rid of them when we want to. And yet, what's to stop somebody from hijacking into that and showing
Yeah.
you something that's not real or not present or not physical? And yet, when you talk about the fidelity and the clarity or the reality of that, that might be presented as a real physical object in your space, I mean, it presents all sorts of problems. And I'm like, we're really in the weeds now, but that's That's the future we're heading into. That's the future that Apple is betting on happening. And they've spent a lot of money and a lot of years getting ready for that future.
I want those
I mean,
glasses. I want
I
them.
want those contacts.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not, looking forward to something being hacked, but I would love to be in a video game. You know what I'm saying? You're in your
Yeah.
house and then suddenly you just, your contacts flip and suddenly you're into like a
Yeah.
game of like, combat game in your house.
Yeah, and just imagine for your kids, instead of them sitting with the controller in their hands, stuck on a couch playing, whether it's a Call of Duty or whatever, them getting outside, getting in the forest, moving around, like how
Yeah.
much more active
Yeah.
we'll be able to be in those digital experiences that are ultimately very sedentary right now. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
again, that's like an incredible opportunity, right?
Yeah. Or going to visit the Louvre. Like, hey, kid,
Yeah,
let's go. Hold my hand. Let's go to the Louvre. I want to show you
Museums.
I want to show you the Mona
absolutely.
Lisa smile. Can you see how small the painting actually is?
Yeah.
And we're there in our living room viewing the Mona Lisa. Dude, genius, man. I love it. Hey, again, you have a great book that's out. You have a series of books that are out. So can you tell us where to find those? And also, how can we follow you on socials so we can hear all about the next adventure for Jelani Memory?
Yeah, so you can find all of our 20 some titles and more, 15 more coming out this year alone at akidsbookabout.com. And if you literally type in a kids book about into Google, we're the first 27 results. Like we're it. And we make books on challenging, empowering, and important topics for kids from 5 to 9. And then me on social, just Jelani Memory at Jelani Memory, wherever you can email me, jelanimemory@gmail.com. Like I read every email and I respond to everybody. I love it when people reach out to me. So that's where you can find me.
Incredible, man. Thank you again so very much for being a part of this show and just hanging out with us. I know you've been busy in June. You took a chunk of time to visit with us today. So we can't thank you enough. So appreciate it. And all right, see you soon.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.
Hey, this is Stephen Christian and Brad Miller from Reactant Media saying thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode.
And also check out the little notification bell. That's going to give you updates when we have new episodes. For example, the little boxes floating here above my head. Make sure to click on one of those. You might see a new episode or win $1 million. Who knows? Click on it. Just
That
go
little
ahead.
box, it's like magic. How did you do that?
Click it.